Former President Obama was on TV earlier today saying, whatever deal the president is able to sign, that it wouldn't be much different than his deal, the JCPOA.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Over the weekend, President Trump signed a historic deal with Iran to end the war in Iran. And immediately, former President Barack Hussein Obama, went on live television to claim that the deal that President Trump signed is no different than his failed deal, the JCPOA, which is completely false. And we have Democrats that are now coming out and saying that President Trump just surrendered to Iran, which is completely false as well, and a lot more that we're going to cover throughout today's video. Let us get into it by starting with this video of Barack Obama making these ridiculous claims. Play clip.
You spent a lot of time wrestling with the threat of a nuclear Iran. How do you think things are being handled right now there?
It is doubtful that any agreement that arises is going to be significantly different or a significant improvement from the deal that we had in the first place and had worked for a long stretch of time before the United States, pulled out of it. So I'm hopeful.
That was former President Obama suggesting that the deal that President Trump signed over the weekend, there will be no significant difference than his deal, the JCPOA. But let us take a look at exactly the difference between these two deals. Because if we examine the JCPOA, which was Obama's deal, we have this article that suggested that the JCPOA allowed Iran to retain the right and capabilities to enrich uranium at levels far lesser than the amount needed to fuel a nuclear weapon. In 2018, President Trump pulled out of the JCPOA and has referred to it as a horrible deal. So from the get-go, you can see that the JCPOA, which was Obama's deal, allowed Iran to enrich uranium. And I went on Google to do a simple search. I asked Gemini, did Iran ever violated the JCPOA? And this is what Gemini had to say. Iran increased its enrichment levels to 20% and eventually 60% purity, far exceeding the 3.67% limit mandated by the JCPOA. And it continues to say that Iran continues to breach the cap on its total enrichment uranium stockpile, holding quantities significantly above the agreed upon limits. Basically, Obama made a deal with Iran to not enrich uranium to pass 3.67%, and Iran disregarded that and far exceeded that number to 20 to 60% enrichment uranium. And the amount that they should keep in storage, the stockpile, they far exceeded that as well, which is why President Trump pulled out of the JCPOA, and we tried to make a deal with Iran, and they didn't want to make a deal, which is why President Trump decided to go to war with Iran. And Obama is now saying that, well, the deal, the JCPOA deal that we had with Iran, it is no different than the deal that President Trump is trying to get with Iran, which doesn't make sense at all. And here we have a reporting on Fox News to highlight the difference between these two deals, the JCPOA and the deal that President Trump signed over the weekend. Play clip.
During the Obama administration, it allowed Iran to continue enriching uranium. And the way that uranium is enriched, the uranium ore is actually extracted from the ground, and then through a chemical process, it turns into yellow cake. And then another chemical process, it turns into hexafluoride gas. And they spin that gas very rapidly in advanced centrifuges. And ultimately, the heavier particles go to the outside and the lighter ones stay in the middle. And this is repeated over and over again until you get to a higher purity of enriched uranium. And to take enriched uranium from, let's say, 5 to 10% to 20%, ultimately to 60%, and eventually 90%, which is weapons-grade material, can be a matter of weeks, if not days. And so allowing the Iranians to keep advanced centrifuges and then enrich uranium, eventually closer to weapons-grade material, set them on a path toward a weapon, because that is a process that is needed to create a nuclear weapon, even if they weren't doing it at that moment. This agreement does not allow the Iranians, according to this senior administration official, to keep any of their enriched material.
That is the key difference between these two deals, the JCPOA and the deal that President Trump signed. I don't know the name of that deal as of yet. We don't know what's inside the deal, but there's a whole bunch of reportings going around, and we're talking about false reportings coming from the Democrats. But the key difference is that Iran will not be enriching uranium, and they will not maintain a stockpile either. We don't know how we're going to essentially acquire the stockpile because we don't have the details of that deal as of yet. But here we have a Democrat, a senator, Senator Reid from Rhode Island, pretty much going on national television and also making false claims in regards to this deal, pretty much saying that we're immediately going to give Iran billions of dollars in sanction reliefs. Watch this clip, and then you'll be surprised what J.D. Vance and President Trump had to say in response to this. Play clip.
But the other part of this is Reuters is reporting that part of the deal is $24 billion in sanctions relief to the Iranians. So this is not a we win and you do what we say. This is how can we open up the straits? What will it cost us?
What we've been told about.
That was Senator Reid from Rhode Island falsely claiming that the administration will be giving Iran billions of dollars, $24 billion in sanction reliefs, which is completely false because Vice President J.D. Vance was asked about this, and this is what he had to say. Play clip.
They say they're going to get $24 billion in frozen funds.
Well, again, Ed, we're open to a lot of things that are on the table, but that $24 billion just doesn't appear anywhere in any of the texts that we've talked about with the Iranians. What we have said is that we're willing to talk about unfreezing assets, but a much, much bigger deal is unsanctioning their economy so long as they make the long-term commitments on the nuclear program.
That $24 billion number that you're hearing from these Democrats is nothing but talking points. And a lot of the things that you hear coming from the Democrats in regards to this deal is nothing but talking points coming from Iran. Because Iran, they're putting out false information, and the Democrats, they're taking that information and they're running with it without doing any type of verification. And President Trump had something to say in regards to Senator Reid, and this is what he had to say. Senator Jack Reid, a Democrat from Rhode Island, lied when stating that the deal we just made is not as good as the Obama disaster known as the JCPOA. The Obama deal was a road to a nuclear weapon for Iran, cash and all, and one of the worst and dumbest deals ever made by the U.S. Our deal is a wall against Iran ever having a nuclear weapon, the complete opposite of Obama. So basically, the Democrats, they're lying, according to President Trump. And here we have a reporting from MSNBC or MS Now. They're saying that President Trump is surrendering to Iran.
This is a terrible deal. It's basically a surrender document from Donald Trump to the supreme leader of Iran. I mean, $100 billion of taxpayer money already put into this war, 14 Americans dead, and we get a deal that just reopens a strait that was already open before he started this stupid war? How is that a win, Alec?
I can tell you how it is a win, and you are a member of Congress. You should know this, that it is a win because Iran will not have a nuclear weapon. Iran will not be enriching uranium. Iran will not be having a nuclear stockpile. That is how it is a win. It is a win because Iran, they lost their military. It is a win because Iran, they lost their hardline leaders. And if we go back to these 4 points where MSNBC, they're claiming that this is a surrender on the part of the United States, what they're claiming is that the release of billions of dollars in sanctions relief to Tehran. We know that this is false because what the administration is claiming is that in order for Tehran to get sanction relief, they have to be working with the United States and they have to abide by the deal, not what they did with the JCPOA under President Obama.
Well, we already signed the deal digitally yesterday, and there's been no money released, and that won't change, George. Again, this is a performance-based thing. If we see the Iranians making, for example, taking action to eliminate their stockpile of enriched material, then yes, sanctions relief will follow. If we see the Iranians taking action to allow the kind of verification regime that we need to see to know that they're not going to build a nuclear weapon, yes, sanctions relief will follow. So this is really about walking down a pathway here where the Iranians will be welcomed into the world economy if they do the right thing. And George, we have to remember, their economy is fundamentally destroyed. Their nuclear program is fundamentally destroyed. If they don't do the right things, if they don't allow the verification regime, they're never going to have the money to rebuild their nuclear program to begin with. So this is fundamentally a win-win for the American people. What the president has said is he wants it to be a win for the Iranian people as well, but that requires some real trust building and some real positive conduct from the Iranian political system. We're going to see if that happens. If it does, they're absolutely going to find the president of the United States and the entire team a willing partner to make their country more prosperous.
And that brings us to the end of this video. Please let me know what you think in the comment section below in regards to this whole deal. Let me know if you think this deal is going to hold, or if you think Iran is going to violate this deal somewhere along the way. Also, please consider liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next one.